There are seminal moments in the history of cinema. We all remember certain theater experiences that defined an entire genre for us. You know, it's the feeling you get as the credits start to roll where you know you just watched something truly special. After watching The Dark Knight, we all knew that comic book films would never be the same. Sitting in that theater after Blade Runner 2049 told us that sci fi is still as poignant as ever, and the world of horror was given new life after Hereditary tore through the big screen. Well, dear viewers, I'm happy to say that that experience has now come to the world of animation. Spider Man Across the Spider Verse absolutely rules by every conceivable metric. It improves upon the original movie and delivers an epic multiversal storyline that manages to be emotional, funny, and action packed. Here, we find Miles Morales doing the classic Spider Man thing of struggling to balance his roles as both teenager and superhero. As he comes to a crossroads in his life, Miles is faced with a growing threat that brings him back into contact with the multiverse characters from his past adventure. Now, I quite enjoyed Into the Spider-Verse. It's a comic book film that was met with both critical acclaim and box office success. Personally, I thought it was pretty great, but a few plot holes and personal nitpicks regarding the multiverse story kept me from enjoying it to the level everyone else held it up to. What it did do, however, was get me interested in the character of Miles Morales. It made me excited to see him in more video games and comic books. And when they announced the sequel for Into the Spider-Verse, I was beyond elated to see him continue on his hero path without the whole multiverse story present. So you can imagine my slight annoyance when they said that the sequel would continue on to expand that plot element. I still had faith in the creative team and went in with decent expectations. Well, those expectations were blown up within this film's first 5 minutes. Not only does Spider Man Across the Spider Verse improve on the multiverse story in this movie, but it retroactively improves on the issues I had with the first film. As always, I will avoid spoilers like the plague, because going into this thing blind was the best way to experience it. There were so many twists and turns thrown my way, and by the time it ended, I could have honestly gone for another hour. I knew that this was the first part of a two-part story, so there was this growing feeling of anxiety I had in the movie's third act. I had no clue when it would cut to black, and by the time it did, I left feeling satisfied but hungry for more. I mentioned the animation a few times, and I can safely say this is one of the best looking movies I've ever seen. Pause it at literally any point and you can hang that frame up on your wall. It helps that each Spider-Man character comes with their own unique animation style, which serves to not only set them apart, but to expand on the world as a whole. And when the action kicks in, it kicks in. Watching this on the big screen is one of the most spellbinding spectacles I've had the pleasure of witnessing. This will absolutely be a day one 4K purchase. Just like the first film, the cast here is all around great, but Oscar Isaac is a particular standout. If you haven't seen any of the film's marketing materials, I won't delve too deeply, but the choices his character makes come from an understandable place, and it sets up the entire moral backbone of the story. It places Miles in an impossible situation that forces him to both question why he became a hero and what he has to do now that he is one. The best comic book movies are the ones that put their protagonists in moral dilemmas which help build their ethos. Across the Spider-Verse is certainly no exception. When it comes to any issues I had with it, uh, yeah, I'm kind of coming up empty here. I heard some complaints that the first act is a bit slow, but I kind of liked it. It really took its time to flesh out all of the characters. There's not a lot of plot stuff going on, but it's necessary to set up their motivations going forward. There are quite a bit of scenes focusing on good character drama, which is the core of any good Spider Man story. It also just feels like I'm watching a comic book on the screen. There's little comic booky details that pop up, like annotations on the side, which help expand on little geeky details. I understand that it might be a tad overwhelming for some general audience goers, but I was fully on board with it. This is definitely a middle part to the story, so while some characters were fully fleshed out, there were one or two who I wished we saw a bit more of. I have no doubt we'll expand on them in the third one, as this one did with the first one. Guys, I'm not going to continue to draw this out, partly because I want you all to turn this review off and watch the movie promptly, but this thing is an absolute masterpiece, and I implore everyone go check it out. It's the best animated movie I've seen in a long time, and definitely one of the best comic book movies I've ever watched, period. I'm going to give Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse an A+.